Origin Just Home Studio and this is the only plane that could beat the F-22 Raptor. This by channel Destiny. This is the video about that YF-23. Somebody told me in the comments that there's a plane called YF-23 which is like better than F-22, and it was like the idea that they had like decades ago. Like, what? If you have like a better plane than F-22, why didn't you made it? Yeah, this is okay. It's gonna be insane video because in my head, and I'm guessing in reality, F-22 is so OP that is just like untouchable. It's surprising to me every time they say like we're making next generation of air dominance, like you have F-22, but I guess it's not upgradable. And I guess even if it's like capabilities, it's so OP. Like if it's not upgradable, certain techs it might not have that might be crucial. Who knows? So yeah, apparently YF-23. Which company is it? YF-23. I don't know, it doesn't say it here. I guess the video will tell us. Well, let's wait on. Yeah, I've been watching this type of videos recently, military tech type of videos, since I started watching Electrician. I'm like, oh, apparently Electrician, just the way he explains his, let's just say all energy he brings, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this is awesome. And then I started to, research more and more video power. Like, there you go, all the different planes. I didn't even know like all these jets are different. I'm like, yeah, all are air dominance, why not? All are same. What does it make? What's the difference there is? But apparently there is. Yeah, so let's watch this one. If you haven't seen other reaction I did, there's a link in the description there, you'll find it, I guess. There's also playlist for Federation reactions and things like that. And I also have Instagram now, Twitter, where I post links. If you don't get notification, YouTube doesn't work sometimes, I guess. Yeah, let's watch it.
Even in a competition between giants, there's always going to be a party that loses out. Such is the story of Northrop Corporation's YF-23.
Northrop made this. Oh, I saw the video about the van, the latest Federation video, like how mail van is from the Northrop people, and I just knew like certain planes they made. A-10, which apparently they didn't make, they're just like manufacturing right now, but they didn't come up with this or something. Somebody told me in the comment. But yeah, they made like B-2 bomber and things like that, insane things. Apparently so is this, like something that is better than F-22. That if they made better plane than Lockheed, why not give them the contract? This doesn't make sense.
3 aircraft, of which only 2 prototypes were made, lovingly known as the Black Widow 2 and Grey Ghost. Today, most people have forgotten about this phenomenal aircraft, and even those who remember it have placed it as a footnote of history, as the aircraft that lost out to the mighty Lockheed Martin's YF-22, now known as the F-22 Raptor. But the aircraft that Northrop Corporation produced was anything but unforgettable. Today,
hold up there, so they are YF-23, that F-22 is YF-22, so this idea came later, is that it?
we will dig up the past and tell you why the YF-23 was a masterpiece of modern engineering.
It looks like the next generation thing that they're working on, the way triangle type of shape.
40 years ago, the chances of a nuclear war was quite possible. With 2 superpowers involved in an invisible war, it was felt that the United States would find themselves in a terrible shooting war against an extremely heavily armed Soviet Union. With a 4-to-1 military advantage belonging to Soviet forces in Eastern Europe, those were legitimate concerns not only for the United States, but also their political allies in Europe. At the time, the United States and its allies were heavily dependent on the F-15 Eagle aircraft. Although a brilliant aircraft in many regards, it was getting old and had a very slim advantage against the new Soviet aircrafts like the MiG-29s and the highly modernized aircrafts in the Su-27 family.
Ooh.
It was enough for the United States Air Force to realize the need for a new fighter. Thus, it took a bold step in the early 1980s to come up with the new requirements of a new air superiority fighter under a program called the Advanced Tactical Fighter, or ATF Program. From the initial requirement stages, the main focus of the US Air Force was on a few features that the new aircraft would absolutely need to have. It included all-aspect stealth, meaning the ability to have a reduced radar cross-section over various flight regimes. The engine should be able to supercruise, which is flying at supersonic speeds without the use of an afterburner. the use of composite materials and new alloys in construction processes to reduce the overall weight of the aircraft. Advanced
cruising, implying that they can the plane can keep up that speed. So basically from that I'm guessing the afterburners are something like I guess nitros that you use in a car. You can use it, but it can't keep up for a long time. It will have to shut off, otherwise it will like overheat or something. Is that the case? Again, I don't know much about this, I'm learning, but I'm guessing that's the case. So if something can super cruise, as in like supersonic speeds without an afterburner, which means it can sustain that speed for a long time.
Fly-by-wire systems to make the aircraft more maneuverable. And finally, the aircraft should have short takeoff and landing, or STOL, capabilities. After the initial years of evaluating proposals and designs, the prototyping and flight testing contract was awarded to Lockheed Martin's YF-22 design and Northrop Corporation's YF-23 design in 1986. Northrop Corporation has always had a history of building high-performance aircrafts. Its founder, Jack Northrop, was the first aviation designer to pioneer the flying wing concept, which led to the eventual development of the B-2 stealth bomber, which is currently the primary long-range stealth bomber of the United States Air Force. Following the same legacy,
I always assume like Lockheed are the most biggest, they're innovator in that way. But Northrop, like look at all the shit like stealth, long wing, whatever it said, right? That plane now, the B-2, that technology came from Northrop. They are the one doing it, right? Also like this, apparently YF-23 as well, like that. They're making a lot of things that are like also like innovative level. So it's like Lockheed and like Northrop both are at that level.
Designers at Northrop partnered with McDonnell Douglas to design the YF-23.
Ik heb een heel lekkere
23, which many still consider to be the most technologically advanced aircraft than its competitor.
Yeah, see the NGAD plane has this kind of like a wingspan, like looks like this kind of, right? Triangle type shape. Which kind of, yeah, look at that. Look at the serrated edges and things.
The YF-23 prototypes were 67 feet 5 inches in length and had a wingspan of 43 feet 7 inches, which was slightly bigger than its competitor, the YF-22, giving the YF-23 a slight advantage in range and speed. The prototype air vehicles, PAV-1 and PAV-2, were powered by two Pratt & Whitney YF-119 and two General Electric YF-120 afterburning turbofan engines respectively. Both engine types were able to meet the minimum ATF program requirements of generating 35,000 pounds of thrust with afterburner, with the ability to supercruise. However, in the end, the Pratt & Whitney YF-119 was chosen to power the winning entry of Lockheed's YF-22. Both prototypes could reach a maximum speed of Mach 2.2 and supercruise at Mach 1.6. Northrop's prototype was the first to take to the skies. PAV-1.
Okay, why doesn't like this YF-23 has like more power, and since it's longer can have fitted with better engine and things? Why is it same as F-22?
Took its first 50-minute maiden flight on the 27th of August with Alfred Paul Metz at the controls. PAV-2 took flight shortly after on the 26th of October and was piloted by Jim Sandberg. By all accounts, the design of the YF-23 was brilliant, with some very advanced design elements. The aircraft was configured with diamond-shaped wings, or trapezoidal wings, which allowed the designers to reduce aerodynamic drag at transonic speeds between Mach 0.75 and Mach 1.2.
The dogfighting
This meant
range.
that the aircraft had good low-speed performance, despite being an overall fast jet. The trapezoidal wing setup also offered advantages for high-speed flight as well. A small and highly loaded wing, such as the YF-23's, offered substantially lower drag at supersonic speeds than other configurations. The wing's tapered layout also reduced structural stresses, allowing the wing to be made thin, thus using less material during construction and keeping the overall weight of the aircraft low. Along with the unusually shaped wing, the YF-23 also featured an all-moving V-tail in favor of the more traditional.
This looks like a kite to me. We have a kite festival. It's like day after tomorrow, I think, 14th January. This looks like a kite because I just bought a lot of kites.
Vertical fins and horizontal surfaces. This kind of tail design is sometimes called a butterfly tail, which is an unconventional design but offers some direct advantages. This configuration reduces the overall exposed surface area of the tail, which not only leads to less parasitic drag, but also makes the rudder controls more effective, allowing the pilot of the YF-23 to achieve more airspeed and maintain proper yaw controls during high-speed flight. Moving forward, the cockpit of the YF-23 was placed very near to the nose of the aircraft to improve overall pilot visibility. The aircraft had a conventional tricycle undercarriage layout with the internal weapons bay placed on the underside of the fuselage between the nose and the main landing gears.
Hold up, how is that different from F-22? F-22 has different configuration than that? I don't know. Pilot is like sit like directly after the radar point, isn't it? Like the top part. That's where the pilot is usually, right? And I don't know.
This meant that the aircraft would carry all its weapons inside and not on wing hardpoints. This choice was made to maintain all aspect stealth of the aircraft, as weapons on external hardpoints are the primary factor in increasing an aircraft's radar cross-section. The two engine manufacturers powering YF-23's PAV-1 and 2 were in their own competition to see which one could produce the best-in-class supercruise capable engine. Combined, both engines on YF-23 produced approximately 70,000 pounds of thrust, which is equivalent to more than 40,000 horsepower. In comparison, an average Arleigh Burke-class destroyer has a total of 100,000 shaft horsepower.
See, I don't like this element because horsepower means nothing when you compare like this. A jet is a jet that works in air. If you put the same jet engine on, like they did the Grand Tour, Top Gear basically did that, those three idiots. They put a jet engine on a boat, on a amphibious vehicle, but it didn't even move. So compared, like, what is the Mach speed they can achieve based on those horsepower? Like, that's what we can feel. This, I don't know what to think of this.
This new generation of engines almost doubled the thrust available to the YF-23 from its nearest counterpart in the US Air Force Service, the F-15 Eagle, whose two Pratt & Whitney F-100 engines could only produce around 40,000 pounds of thrust in the afterburner setting. This increase in engine performance was a big technological breakthrough for the ATF program, as it led to the creation of the first supercruising jet fighters in the world. It meant that fighter jets would no longer have to rely on gas-guzzling afterburners to reach supersonic.
I was about to say, like, isn't the Eagle supposed to go like 2.5 Mach or so, because of afterburner? This horsepower means it's the primary engine. Without the afterburner, it can cruise at high speeds.
Saving valuable fuel and increasing the overall range of the aircrafts. A major challenge for ATP program designers was to provide stable airflow to high-performance engines on an airframe that's hard to spot on radar. Simply put, the issue had to do with boundary layer air that spreads around the aircraft's fuselage as it flies. Boundary layer air can flow at different velocities and directions compared to the air that's offset from the aircraft's surface. Mixing these two streams of air can lead to large drops in engine efficiency. During certain regimes of flight, boundary layer air can become highly turbulent, largely impacting the engine's performance or even suffocating it. At supersonic speeds, these issues are compounded even more. The YF-23 featured a trapezoidal engine inlet with S-ducts, and some very clever solutions to make this program go away. Prior to the ATF program, supersonic jets dealt with this problem using elaborate splitter plates to separate the two airflow and maintain uniform supply through the inlet opening. But those concepts were not very conducive to stealth. Even a small gap between the inlet and
the more shit you put there, the more there's chance of like disrupting it, right? So yeah, I saw the real engineering video, like how this is like a clever thing, right? About like how low pressure, high pressure can cause issues with engine and things.
the fuselage can result in a radar cross-section increase. Thus, the designers of the YF-23 came up with an innovative solution. They installed gauzing panels ahead of where the fuselage meets the leading edge of the air inlets. These panels had small holes drilled all over them and would suck up the boundary layer air, sticking to the fuselage before it entered the air inlet. This air was then vented out through a pair of small doors on the YF-23's upper surface. In effect, it acted like an invisible splitter plate of sorts, but instead of separating the air, it removed it. The system was called the Boundary Layer Control System and worked automatically. This configuration of the inlet, coupled with the gauzing panels, feed the massive engine compressors with a steady stream of air, even at supersonic speeds, while maintaining all aspect stealth. Unlike its competitor, the YF-23 did not feature a thrust-vectoring engine nozzle. Some say this was a massive disadvantage for the YF-23 in the ATF program and reduced its overall maneuverability, making the aircraft less agile in low-speed regime. However, according to the designers of the aircraft, they sacrificed a little bit of agility to gain a lot more survivability. Due to the flat nature of the YF-23's fixed engine nozzles, the designers were able to line them with heat-ablating tiles, thus reducing the infrared signature or IR signature of the aircraft to heat-seeking surface-to-air and air-to-air missiles, the main weapon system that an...
Hold up there. So they didn't have the like thrust vectoring, like moving type of, so obviously it's not going to be as agile as F-22. But they did this so it has less heat infrared signal, right? So it can basically like avoid a lot of heat from, a lot of direct hit from missiles and things. Like, okay, but how effective it is when you put it like that? Is it like effective enough to make a difference? Because if it is, like, I don't know. Right now, F-22 is like really stealthy. Like getting hit by a missile is like a rarity. Like even if it does, but if it does, I'm pretty sure it's like agile enough to dodge it. So would that even be a plus point? And the whole thing of like F-22 is like it's insanely agile at slow speed. That's why it's like it's an air dominance thing. If dogfight does happen, it's supposed to be powerful, right? In that way, agility is insanely, powerful in that way. Like somebody's trying to lock onto you. You just like, basically agilely just like go left and right and just like never get lock on. So how much does it sacrifice by not using that kind of engine, and how much it gains by reducing that heat? The missiles does actually avoid the plane and it never hits. Is it that level of accurate? Then I don't know. It's like yeah.
Enemy will deploy against a low observable stealth air superiority fighter. Just like the company's B-2 bomber, the heat-ablating tiles significantly dissipated the engine nozzle temperature, which was anywhere between 3,000 and 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. On the other hand, in order to be maneuverable and maintain its agility during air-to-air combat, the YF-23 prototypes were installed with multiple aerodynamic instabilities, which were all controlled by its advanced fly-by-wire system. The YF-23's core processor was considered as the most advanced supercomputer of its era, performing nearly 5 to 6 billion operations per second. The system not only managed the flight controls of the aircraft, but also provided radar, navigation, performance data, and situational awareness to the pilot, all in real time.
Whoa.
All these features made the YF-23 a real technological marvel of its era.
So
The
better than the
armament system
22.
of the YF-23 prototypes were based mostly around air-to-air missiles and air-to-ground bombs. Since all missiles and bombs had to be carried inside the internal weapons bay to main stealth, the overall payload capacity was not that great compared to other conventional fighters. Despite this, all the necessary weapons needed in an air superiority fighter were available to the YF-23's pilot. The aircraft could carry the standard AIM-9 Sidewinder for close air-to-air fire, and also the AIM-120 AMRAAM or the AIM-7 Sparrow for medium to beyond visual range targets. The aircraft also featured a main M61 Vulcan cannon, which could fire 20mm rounds at a very high rate of fire of around 6,000 rounds per minute. Finally, given the mission types, it also had the capability to carry up to 2 1,000-pound or 4 500-pound air-to-ground bombs. All in all, the two YF-23 prototypes tested well and checked all the boxes required for the ATF program, and some argue even beat its competitor, the YF-22, in areas of speed, range, and overall performance. However, today we all know how the story goes. After 4 grueling years of testing and evaluations, YF-22 was selected as the winner over the YF-23.
That's the thing, like why did that happen? Did like YF-23, all the promises it made, like all the technology they put in, like were not as effective as they thought it would be? Is that the case? Or did they just won because of that like thrust vectoring thing that gives you more agility and they just like decided that's better? Or some political bullshit like rubbing the shoulder, Lockheed having more pull in the Senate or some shit, like is that was the cases? Maybe all of that played part.
The designers of the two YF-23 prototypes have always remained firm on their belief that their aircraft was superior and more technologically advanced of the two. However, various political forces and lobbying swayed the decision in favor of
There you
Lockheed's
go.
YF-22,
It's
which is still
Lockheed, of
currently in
course.
service as the F-22 Raptor. A total of 195 F-22 Raptors were produced, and the production finally stopped in
Look, what I think is maybe, I don't know shit, but maybe YF-23 was better because of its better supercomputer that was like obviously best of its time, so better than F-22, I'm guessing. It had like a better, or it had a bigger size, so it could super cruise better to it. It had like B2 style, like, masking the heat type of technology, so maybe can't be locked onto. Again, it might not be as agile as F-22, but, and as the history goes, there is no action that F-22 saw as a dogfighting or air dominance thing, but it did saw action as like a bomber of some sort, like air support type of shot. They modified it, so maybe F-23 would have been better in that regard, I'm guessing. It doesn't need that much agility to do that shit, and yeah, any SAM missile or something trying to lock onto it might not have great time doing that. So maybe F-23 would have been better than that. And the way it looks, I think the NGAD is taking like a lot of inspiration from that. Who's making it? Who's making NGAD? Northrop or Lockheed? Or both? Like, it's like whichever gets selected in the last. That's what's happening.
2011. On the other hand, the two YF-23 prototypes, PAV-1 and PAV-2, were donated to air museums, never to be flown again. But in recent years, there's been a glimmer of hope for the revival of the YF-23 in the form of Japan's F-3 sixth-generation fighter. Japan is seeking the help of Northrop Grumman in aiding their design and development of its F-3 fighter program. And given the entire experience gained during the development of the YF-23, the company is optimistic in securing the contract for this project. Regardless of what is in store for the future, as aviation enthusiasts, we'd love to see the return of the YF-23 in its reincarnated form, taking to the skies and finally bearing fruit to all the research and hard work that was spent in making this magnificent aircraft that everyone seems to have forgotten. So what do you think about the possible return of the YF-23? Let us know in the comments section below. And keep up to date on advanced military weapons and...
Wait a minute, who paid for those prototype? Taxpayer money, US? So it'll be something like all the things that were learned by US taxpayer money, now Japan's gonna profit from that. Well, there you go. I guess that's how it goes. Japan is the ally of US, so why the fuck not? Yeah, to me it feels like Northrop is like more advanced company than Lockheed, just like advance is based. Like look at the B-2 bomber. That's like, also the long wing. The modern generation of like stealth thing comes from Northrop, right? The F-23, YF-23 also had like better supercomputer to it, right? Better heat masking technology. So if in the future, like, okay, stealth, to me stealth is like, okay, staying hidden, sure. But once you get discovered, that's another stealth thing that goes on. Is like having enough things that can avoid missiles, like missiles can target you. Northrop is apparently good at that, knowing B-2 and like what they were using with YF-23, so I don't know. Like I'm thinking NGAD might go to Northrop, but then again, like he said, political things, who knows, Lockheed might take it. But F-3 with Japan, that's the interesting thing to see. They're making 6th generation jet. Like if US gives NGAD contract to, let's say, Lockheed, if they make F-3 from Northrop, there will be like a real toe-to-toe comparison between two, like who's better this time, rather than putting in museum, I guess. Right, well, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe. If you haven't seen another reaction that I did, link in the description. Check out the end card right now, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Comment if you want to do any specific reaction, I guess.